At the end of the summer holidays, my never-ending battle with the housework got the best of me, and the house, and the mess, won. I think we call it burnout. When you've been pushing yourself and trying for an extended period of time, and your mind and your body just say, no more. Well, that's happened to me, and the house has descended into chaos. And in today's video, we're going to make a start in trying to get back to equilibrium. You'll often see me make videos on my big energy days, where I've mustered up the strength and the motivation to tackle the whole house in one day. But this is not what we're going to be doing in this video, in this series in fact. What we're going to do this time is clear one room at a time, a video per room. What you've just seen me take outside there was a big branch of eucalyptus. I took it from my mum's allotment so that I didn't have to keep going out to find stick insect food. But I can't bear to look at it anymore, it's just adding more chaos to the room, so out it goes. Anyway, in this video I'm going to slow everything down, because I'll often speed everything up to fit a whole house clean into one short video. Yes, my own bin did make me retch. But I'm making this series for the people who are feeling the same way as I did, who need to see a more realistic cleaning video and need to see that it's okay if things take time and it's okay if you don't get it all done in one go or if you have to stop and start. I know in the frame of mind I was in at this point, watching a sped up video of someone powering through tasks and achieving an inhuman amount in one go would have only made me feel worse. And that's from someone who loves to watch and create speed cleans. I feel like they scratch a massive itch in the brain. But sometimes it isn't what we need. So my whole house, every room, is in a similar state to this. And we're going to get through it bit by bit together. We're going to have a good old chat and work through any feelings of guilt and shame. And hopefully you'll get to the end of this video feeling a bit more positive. And I hope every video coming up in this series builds you up a bit more and adds to that positive feeling. So if you need a boost, I'm going to make a playlist and you can watch it at your own pace. Okay, so as with every other overwhelming mess, I usually map out a kind of game plan before I start. First thing was getting rid of that eucalyptus branch, moving the bin back to where it's supposed to be, emptying it, giving it a clean so that we can then get rid of the rubbish on the counters and the floor. With the surfaces, I usually clear up in a circular direction, starting on one side and moving around. The visual aspect of seeing one section cleared at a time really helps mentally. It gives you a push to carry on. And that's opposed to kind of segmenting and saying, I'll clear the rubbish first, because you don't get to see a transformation as quickly that way. Obviously, no way of doing things is wrong, and I actually have videos surrounding doing it that exact way, but the way we clean and the way we muster motivation really hinges on our frame of mind. And I'm a huge advocate for adjusting our technique based on the way we feel. So I have a general topic of discussion for each of these upcoming videos, and all of the topics are intended to educate and to help others feel seen. Today I want to talk about the link between executive dysfunction and picking up as you go along in more detail. Because it really does explain why these kind of situations happen so often for some people and not at all for others. Or when it does, it's rare. You'll see people like me, or if you are like me, you'll know we get into cycles where we'll do a huge clean-up, everything looks amazing, we feel calm and proud, and we promise ourselves we're going to stay consistent now. This mess is never happening again. And we believe it. And then it happens again. And we're left feeling completely defeated and absolutely exhausted by ourselves and the situation. Does that sound familiar to you at all? If it does, I'm sorry. We're tired, I know. But we're not alone. And I think there's a lot of comfort to be found in that. So I think I should start by explaining what executive dysfunction is. It might help people who are often getting pretty frustrated at certain patterns of behaviour kind of understand why these behaviours might happen. Maybe this is within yourself or you're observing it in a family member or loved one. Before I do that, I want to mention that most of this mess on the floor was made about 10 minutes before I decided to make this series. It was the catalyst. I bought a box of cool Minecraft bath bombs from Lush for my eldest, opened them, and then my youngest pulled the box off the side and packing peanuts went everywhere. And this is not the first time this has happened in this house. So essentially, executive dysfunction is a disruption in the brain's ability to plan, to organise, to manage time. I'm sure there are better ways of explaining this, and there will be things I've missed, but I'm doing my best, and I'm speaking from my own experience. So for me, firstly, it's a disruption in my ability to move in and out of a task. I'll often experience something called task paralysis. And this is where I really want to do something, but I just can't get myself to move. And this is not to be confused with decision paralysis. At the other end of the scale, when I'm really ingrained in a task, I struggle to snap myself out of it and move on to something else. And as you know, as a parent, you frequently have to move in and out of tasks and modes throughout the day. I've always struggled with that adjustment between modes. And this goes hand in hand with task paralysis because I'll freeze when I know I need to move on to something else. When it comes to time management, I'll very often lose track of time when I'm deeply focused on what I'm doing, which can be called time blindness. But I'm also affected by something called waiting mode, and this is where I'll have an appointment or something important later on in the day, and because of that, my whole day is dedicated to waiting for that appointment. I can't plan anything else, I can't do anything else, and I know it sounds so silly. And it's partially because I know myself. I know my track record with forgetting and missing appointments. So I wait to stay in that one frame of mind because I don't want to miss the appointment. Easily solved by setting alarms, I know, but I could write a whole essay about how I'm still late, even though I do set alarms, but I digress. It's also because I'm so stressed out about the upcoming appointment itself. And I don't know whether this is some kind of lingering trauma from being a forgetful child, but I don't want to do anything fun or leisurely until it's over. And this might be okay behaviour when you're younger, but when you're an adult and have work and multiple commitments during the day, it's just a massive waste of time. That one doesn't affect me so much anymore because I've found ways to push through. I've found ways to manage all of it to an extent, and generally, I function quite well from day to day, but I wanted to briefly go into it because I know a lot of other people are still very much blighted by things like waiting mode. It's very annoying. I used to be baffled by people that could plan a whole day out before their late shift at work. I'd be sat there thinking, what do you mean? What do you mean you're out enjoying yourself and making the most of your time, and you're not stuck glued to the spot waiting for your shift to start? My brother, he's still very much affected by this. I mentioned a few videos ago, he's got a part-time job where I work now, and you cannot ask him to do something on the day of his late shift, or the day after, because he needs a whole day afterwards to be alone and recover from the shift. That's just one of the ways his autism affects him, and we chuckle about the waiting mode thing together. He's really self-aware, same as me, but it really can be debilitating when people are making plans and they want you to join and you just appear completely antisocial. And while we're on that topic, just as a side note, if you've got anyone in your life that always seems to cancel plans at the last minute or says no and makes up kind of excuses, and you're getting to the point where you're thinking, there's no point inviting them really, please still do. Just invite them, even if you know they're going to say no, because it means the world just to be invited. Anyway, next is habits. People with executive dysfunction often have a very hard time creating and sticking to habits. Or they can seem to be on a roll with their habits, and all it takes is one day's disruption and all of their progress can be erased. And it's not like, well, I've missed a day, I'll just get straight back to it the next. No, it's now I have to plan and reset and convince myself all over again. And the conditions have to be perfect just for me to start right from the bottom again. As we all know, life is never predictable, and there are always going to be things that crop up to disrupt our plans a little. If you're spontaneous and adaptable, it doesn't really cause an issue, you just go with the flow, but for some people, it really does have an effect on their life. Some people are really dependent on structure and familiarity to be able to function and show up as their best self. How does this all relate to picking up as you go along and keeping house? Well, when you consider all of those factors, being distractible, having issues with time management, sticking to habits, It's usually the case that we have to put forth a huge amount of effort and energy just to be aware of our surroundings and remember things like, don't put it down, put it away, or if you put this down to sort later, you're not going to do it, or don't sit down after dinner, wash the pots now. You know, remembering these seemingly very simple and helpful things that usually just come automatically to other people through repetition and habit can be mentally draining. Apologies to anybody who doesn't like food being picked out of a plug hole. But yeah, I've found when I'm consistent with a habit, say keeping on top of the house, because it is a habit, it's only a matter of time before a disruption happens. And in that one day of dropping the ball, one day, the amount of mess that can be made is ridiculous. And that one day creates a game of catch-up that is just completely overwhelming. But despite all of that, the fact is, I don't like who I am when I pick up as I go along. Because I'm putting in a lot of mental effort to keep myself in check, I'm often irritable and on edge. I'll snap when other people make even the slightest bit of mess. I can't regulate my emotions well at all. And I don't want that for my family. I've said this before. I don't want the people who live in my home to be walking on eggshells. So if you're wondering how and why mess like this happens sometimes, or why certain people choose to do big cleanups at the start or the end of the day, as opposed to consistently picking up throughout the day, those things can factor into it. It's not easy for everybody. Often, people with executive dysfunction or ADHD need the pressure of an impending deadline to kind of kickstart any productivity in their body. I remember all the way through school, right up to university, I'd only ever get my work done at the last minute. Same as with housework and picking up as I go along. Consistently working on a project bit by bit, day by day, I just couldn't do it. It was that panic, that rush of cortisol that got me through essays and projects pretty much the day before handing. And I always got good results, but that's beside the point. An impending deadline or time pressure is sometimes the only thing that can kick people into action. So I hope I've kind of given an insight into what executive dysfunction is and how it affects people. I know firsthand it can be hard to explain to people, especially when you're flustered and overwhelmed and someone's calling you lazy and asking why your laundry's been sat there in the same spot for 5 days straight. It's hard to talk yourself out of that because we all know what it looks like from an outside perspective. And at the end of the day, some people aren't ever going to understand and some people just don't want to. When it comes to those people, leave them to it. Let them think what they think. You know who you are deep down and you know how hard you're working. Anyway, if your house is in a similar condition as mine right now, and this is why you're watching, you're probably thinking, well, this is all well and good, Remy. We've almost cleared a room. It's looking great. But if the whole house looks like this, and you said the mess happens fast in my house too, how do we stop it getting trashed again when we're focusing on sorting the next one? Fabulous question. We're going to use 10-minute timers. 10-minute timers are going to be your best friend. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear the first room, like you've seen me do today, and then every day going forward, whilst we work on getting the other rooms back to base level, we do 10-minute speed cleans on the rooms we've already done. Now, this way of doing things probably won't result in a perfectly clean room or a perfectly tidy house. But what it will do is prevent it getting to an overwhelming state again. And then when we've got the whole house back into a manageable state, it's easier to work with. It's easier to keep on top of again. If I didn't do it this way, it would just be a continuous vicious cycle where I clear one room and another builds up as I do it. And coming from experience, that's just an unbearable way to live. Because it's never ending. It's always on the back of your mind. You can't relax. And I firmly believe we should actually get to enjoy living in our homes. That's the point. There's a difference between a house and a home. At the same time, I think sometimes we need to try and let go of this idea that the house needs to look immaculate at all times. And I'd love to be able to do one big clean a day and then that's it, job done for the day. But it just isn't how it works, is it? People live here. It's a continuous process that's never ever complete, really. And some people, myself included, can drive themselves crazy trying to finish something that you can't finish. I'm not suggesting that the house should be left in extreme mess either, and I hope that goes without saying. If you've known me for a while, you'll know that. You'll know that I struggle with messiness, but I don't enjoy the mess. It's just compromise is needed in all areas, especially in homes where mess can happen so fast, and I'm going to go into that in the next video. But if you're in a situation where all you need to do is have a quick whiz round each evening and then you can spend the rest of the night chilling with your family or doing whatever it is you love to do and the house stays clean, more power to you. But in this house, with two rambunctious boys, it does not stay tidy for 5 minutes. So you have to try your hardest to just embrace it and relax and say to yourself, I've done my speed clean, it's not perfect, but it's neat enough for now. And I know that's impossible for some people. I do realise it can be draining and debilitating on the other end of the scale too, when you can't relax because you know things are out of place. But for me, it's either that, compromise, or like I said, for example, it's evening time in the house and everyone's trying to chill and spend time together, and I'm walking around picking up constantly, hoovering under people's feet, interfering in the kids' playtime and imagination because I feel like they've got too many toys out in one go, just generally making the whole house feel tense. I've been there, and finding that balance and that middle ground is hard. It's all hard. Juggling everything is hard. And I never thought I'd be this obsessed with cleaning and tidying. So much so that I have a channel dedicated to it and the psychology behind why mess happens. But I do. I find it so fascinating. This subject, as boring as it might be to others, has impacted my life to such an extent. Remember, I was a very messy child and someone who could never keep up or do things on time and who always seemed to be chasing a tail and overwhelmed, watching other people seemingly just breeze through it. I know this isn't the case, by the way. We all have our obstacles. But yeah, now I'm a parent still trying to navigate all of that whilst raising little humans just like me. And I don't want them to feel the way I did. And I want to educate and talk about it all in depth and bring comfort to other people like me. And I hope I've been able to do that for you today. I've got so much more to go into in the next videos. I'm going to be addressing common questions and criticisms I get, and this might help you respond to people in your life who throw similar questions your way. And I've also finally sat down and started writing my little book on the topic. I always said I'd never do it and I don't have time, but I love to write and I think this book could be helpful for a lot of people, so I'm very excited. I don't know how long it's going to take, but we'll see. Anyway, this is the kitchen almost done. I'm going to show you the before and afters to give you that final little boost and show you that it is possible to get an overwhelming mess done and not feel stressed about it. You don't need to feel stressed. Do it in your own pace, in your own way. Doesn't matter how you're getting it done. What matters is you're getting it done.